welcome to the Ads Pod this week. We're three friends again who work in the gambling industry, and as always, we want to jump in, have a few chats about the week's betting. So it's me, Jake Ashton, Sam Boswell, and Sam Farley. Hi guys, how you doing this week? You okay?
All good. Just looking forward to the football starting again on the weekend.
Superb. So we have got a busy weekend this weekend. We've got obviously the Community Shield coming up. We've got the Women's Euros. We've got lots of racing, F1. It's another busy week after last week, which was extremely busy too. So first, what we'll talk about this week is the Community Shield. So it doesn't really need much of an introduction, to be honest. It's City against Liverpool, Manchester City, that is. And I think it's going to be a good game. Liverpool last season, they played in every single game that they could play in. So I feel that, again, this year, it's going to be a competitive Community Shield where last season it was Leicester against Man City. What do you think is going to happen in this game, Farley?
Well, look, I spoke about this in a tipping piece actually elsewhere, but I think this is going to be another very, very hotly contested game. It is a friendly to all intents and purposes, but I think when these two meet, that just simply isn't the case. So I'm expecting lots of high intensity, lots of action, lots of fouls. Probably not that many bookings, I think, but I think we'll see plenty of fouls. Really looking forward to it. You mentioned kind of before we went on air today that Alisson is out for Liverpool, and I think that could be a deciding factor. I'd be fairly confident that it will end up as a draw because Liverpool have been drawing in cup finals, and also I think three out the last 5 times they've met or something like that. They've been ties, so I think that'll be the case. It's either 2 or 3. I can't remember off the top of my head. So I think a draw's a really good bet, but obviously it's at the King Power Stadium, not Wembley, because of the Women's Euro final, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a bit. But for me, there's one bet I absolutely love. Can I jump in and just say it?
Go on, say it, mate. Say it.
I mean, technically, there's 2 people I think are going to score in this game. One of them, I'm sure one of us will mention in a minute, but the one I'm going to mention is Mo Salah. He's 23-13, so not quite doubling up, but not far off it. That's best price for an anytime goal scorer. He has to shoulder that burden now with Mane gone. Nunes could be really good. Still, we don't really know, a bit of an unknown quantity. And Salah, if you remember last year and previous years, he starts hot. So I think Salah has a really good chance of scoring and has a really good price. Certainly compared with Haaland, who I think is slightly shorter price, but to be honest, I think will also score 5-1 for the double as well if you really want to do that. But yeah, what do you reckon, boss?
I think you've got it completely wrong, Sam, right? And I'm going to diplomatically explain why, right? Let's be honest. Jake, you're a City fan. Have you ever celebrated winning the Community Shield? Do you genuinely have any remote interest or care about it?
Not really. I'd say about 20% of me would be buzzing to win it, to be honest.
I mean, you've got to go back to 2018 since you last won it. And this game, to me, absolutely, it's such a negative bet. Screams under 2.5 goals at 11-10. Absolutely screams it. So let's just take a quick walk through. Bear in mind, it's a very specific type of game, this one, right? So last year we saw Leicester get the better of Man City. That was 1-0. Year before was Arsenal playing Liverpool. That went to penalties, didn't it? It was 1-1. Then the year before that in 2019, Liverpool versus City was 1-1. 2018 was 2-0 to City over Chelsea. Arsenal 1-1 with Chelsea 2017. You've got to go back to 2016 before we hit over 2.5 goals. And then going back all the way to 2013, you only get it twice, basically, in the 9 years that follow. So as far as I'm concerned, unders is the bet. I don't know how many substitutes there are allowed here. I assume it'd be like the league regulations this year for 5, Jake. Is that correct?
I think it is, yes. I think it is.
So if not realistically, I know Pep doesn't tend to use them as much as other people, but I'm sure Jurgen Klopp will. I can see the rhythm of the game being very disruptive. It's going to be unpleasantly warm for players. I really don't expect this to produce much of a game to the point where I'm nearly not going to watch it. Of course I will watch it. I'm pretty tempted to be cutting my lawn while this game's on. Haaland, Jake, let's talk about him. Then I'll throw back to you here because I've obviously made my point that I differ to Farley. I think it's going to be cagey and horrible this game. You're quite keen to back your new star striker to make the perfect start.
Yeah, I've been umming and ahhing really about what to bet on for this game because I think I agree with Farley where I do think it's going to be a draw. I know, again, like we've said,
there we go.
Last year in the finals that Liverpool played in domestically, they drew every game, didn't they? And it went to penalties. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the same thing again. But I have gone Haaland first goal scorer just because Alisson missing out and potentially Kelleher missing out means that Adrian will be in net, and I just think that that's going to be massive for the game. I think we saw it last year with City when we played Zach Steffen in there and he had an absolute stinker against Liverpool, and that can sometimes happen. So I think we might see something similar here. The other thing I will say is the bet that I've seen, if you do think it is going to be a stinker, is 0-0, no bookings, 150 to 1.
That's a bet.
That is a bet. That's a massive price.
If you get half time, I think that's a bet.
I don't think the game ends like that, but I always do think when there's heavy kind of thought and consensus that a result goes one way, going the other way is quite often where the value lies. So I totally disagree that will happen, but I think that is a worthwhile kind of chuck on a £2 bet kind of thing to see where you go from there.
You think my unders is a value loser, basically, Farley at odds against?
I think you're getting. I think it's unders, and specifically that bet in particular, are probably better priced than they should be because the public money is going on the over and it's going to be high scoring. But I think in this one it will be. I think we will see goals. Just to counter your point about people not caring, I totally agree. This game is a friendly. No one really cares. But I think when it's when it's say a friendly 1 week before the start of the season, you're playing, let's be honest, the team that will be your closest competitor for the season. You have to stick a marker in the ground. Like you can't just go into that airy-fairy. It doesn't really matter. Like I think those two sets of teams, they want to get the early punch on and just really send out a statement. So I think it will be quite a hotly contested one.
Okay. Jake, I know Farley wants to finish this off with his 50-1 bet builder. I've got nothing more to add other than I'll just about be watching it. Anything else you want to add as a City fan? Are you going to the game?
No, I'm not going to the game purely just because, again, it's just a bit of a glorified friendly to me.
No one cares. No one cares.
Rail strikes too. It's not a really good weekend, is it?
No.
But there's nothing else really to add. Like I say, I just think it's going to be very interesting to see how Haaland and how Núñez do, because Farley, you've tipped Salah to score, but is there not anything that's like edging you towards Núñez at all?
I just think, I don't know. I don't know enough about him. Like I saw him, how many times did I watch him last year? I watched him 3 times last year and once in a preseason friendly this year. So I think, to be honest, like I know you always get these people on Twitter and stuff. They're like, "Oh yeah, I've seen him, great player." Have you really watched him, or have you seen a few highlights? Like, there's a lot of kind of blaggers out there, and I'll hold my hands up. I've not seen enough to really.
You're honest about it. That's okay, Farley. That's all right. It's someone coming on here telling me that they've seen every game he's played in, cup games. Yeah. It's just nonsense.
But I think we see Haaland score, and I think we see Salah score. I'd be quite confident on both of those. As I mentioned, it's a 5-1 bet builder for those two. But there is one bet builder I really like, and it's very similar to that. It's Haaland and Salah both to score. But then I've just chucked this on there. I don't even know why. It just feels right. Núñez and Jack Grealish to get assists. Núñez, I think we're all thinking he's going to go in there and just be the goals guy. I think there's a very real chance we see a lot of assists. That front three historically always been very good at setting each other up for goals. And just Jack Grealish, he was pretty good down the stretch, I thought, last season. And he really did look like he earned Pep's trust in key games, which I think is key. They've obviously lost Sterling. They've lost Jesus. I don't know if the new Argentinian lad's going to be playing that much to start with. But I think you're going to see a lot more Grealish than you did last year. And one thing, I saw it in the friendly. I just see City players getting to the byline, hitting the ball back across, straight into the path of Haaland. I think Haaland is going to score so many ratty, almost like 1990s Premier League goals.
They're FIFA
This
goals,
year.
Farley. The cutback, the horrible cutback
Pretty much,
FIFA
yeah.
goals.
That's what it's going to be. But I think Jack Grealish is the sort of guy you can just get that little bit of wriggle room on the left flank, hit the byline, ball across, goal. I think. Here's a hot take for you. I don't know what the odds are. I might even request this. Grealish will get 7+ assists for Erling Haaland this season. Do you think that's a hot take?
I don't think.
You
I
won't
think
get
he's
a good
going
price.
to play a lot more. He's going to play a lot more this year, 100%. Pep's going to want to start him in every game. He started him in pre-season, and he's played well in pre-season too. So I won't be surprised.
Right. Well, I think that rounds off the Community Shield really nicely, and enjoy the game. I'd like to think we won't all be wrong. Be very interesting to see how it ends up. If it's a draw on 1-1, I'll certainly be pretty delighted, as with the other two boys back in the draw. That's kind of the only consensus we've probably come to, really. But yeah. Now, I challenged the lads because I fancied a bet on the Football League, because that returns this weekend. And I'll be honest, I don't watch enough of it to sit here and proclaim that I can give people a winning tip or two. So each of them came up with something. Jake's bet is a little more leaning towards a longer term bet. And if you did miss last week's podcast, do go back and check it out. Subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube as well. We really appreciate any thumbs up. Really helpful to us. We went in depth on the Premier League, and we did touch on the EFL. But Jake, you've got another bet you want to add to the portfolio. I hate that word, but we're going to use it. And it involves Norwich, everybody's favourite Alan Partridge supported side.
Yeah, I've just looked into Norwich a little bit more in the last week, purely due to writing about them in a preview. And they are the ultimate yo-yo side. They're up and down, up and down, up and down. And I feel that this year in particular, it's going to be Norwich again, who are one of the dominant sides in the league. What I've gone for is Norwich to win the league and Pukki to be top scorer, simply due to the fact that Timu Pukki is a bagsman, well and truly, scores goals. Last two times he's played in the Championship, he scored 29 and 26 goals. In the Premier League, he's been scoring goals too. Like, he's not been extremely prolific, but he's scored 11 goals in the Premier League. So I just think that when he drops down into the Championship, he just becomes a much better player. It's a bit like Mitrovic, really. He's obviously took the league by... He smashed the division last year, didn't he? And I feel that there just are players who are designed specifically for that league. I think Timu Pukki is one of the players.
They fit in between, don't they, Jake? The Premier League's just not for them. Is an out-and-out striker. Yeah. But the Championship, they're too good for it. That's the main point, I think. And no, I definitely think there's some good reasoning there. Well,
it's
Sam's
22-1 for the double anyway, sorry. So
yes, I don't mind that. I might throw a fiver at it. Now, Farley, you've gone for a more traditional bet. Acca's are back, thank God. How we missed them this summer. There's nothing better, is there, than Jeff Stelling on in the background. Well, we won't have Jeff Stelling this season, as I understand it. Or will we? I kind of lost track of it.
No, we will.
He's back, isn't he?
Yeah, he cancelled his retirement, yeah.
Okay, well, that's
one more year.
Yeah, well, it'll be flash score for me then, probably while I'm out and about shopping with the missus. But Farley, your Acca's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Just run us through it. I think it's around a 12-1 shot, best price shopping around.
Yeah, actually, just over 13-1. When I looked at nearly 14, actually. But look, I love betting on the EFL. Firstly, I support an EFL club, Plymouth Argyle. Go on the Greens. I just enjoy that level of football. But also, I think the Premier League, it can be really, really tough to find some value when there's so much money going into that every single Saturday. The EFL, though, I think you can find some huge value throughout the year, and it's definitely where I get most of my money, really, in terms of betting on football. And in particular, the early weeks of the season, before the trends are solidified, if you hop on them early, you can do really well. So I'd say for the next 3-4 weeks, there's going to be plenty of opportunities. But this is for week 1. I've got Peterborough on the road against Cheltenham. Like I mentioned last week, I think Cheltenham are in trouble this year. They're rubbish. So Peterborough, newly relegated, they aren't a bad side. They always do well in this division. They will beat Cheltenham on the road. Then you got 3 home games. We're talking Tranmere against Stevenage. That's an absolutely easy win for Tranmere, who I think are going to have a really good season. You have Luton beating Birmingham. Now, Birmingham have got their new owners now, all that sorted, but they are still, at the end of the day, absolutely pants. Whereas Luton, they were a bit lucky last year to kind of end up in the position they did and in the playoffs. And I don't think they're going to be in that position again this year, but they are still a solid team. I think at home, they will win. And finally, it is Stockport to beat Barrow. Obviously, got a man in this screen here that loves a bit of Stockport, but these teams that come up from the conference, the quality between League Two and the conference is very marginal now. And whenever teams come up, they pretty much always have top half finishes because, well, let's be honest, there should be more promotion and relegation spots, if we're being honest. But for me, I think Stockport are going to absolutely thrash Barrow, and I think Stockport have a really good chance of promotion. So yeah, I'm all on that one. That pays 13.78 to 1 best price, which I absolutely love. So are there anything there that takes your fancy, boss?
Honestly, I'm going to have a small bet on both of them. What I would say is, personally, maybe I'm a bit conservative. Every time I try and find an Acca for week 1, week 2 of the season, something listen, I'm not like I win them all through the year either. They're always hard to land, but I do tend to just take a bit of a pull or not have as much down at the start of the season. You need, to my mind, you'll start seeing patterns within 5 to 6 weeks. I think, the EFL fixtures do start to build. You kind of, I think you need that personally under your belt. One thing I would recommend as well, if you'd like doing Accas and you follow through the season, try and be consistent with your staking. A staking plan was the best thing that anyone's ever shown me. So if you're going to give yourself 20 quid to spend every Saturday, break it down. So if you like both teams to score bet, have a fiver on that. But try and do the same patterns each week, because then you'll work out what's profitable for you and what's not. And it just helps you stay in control. I do think staking plans are essential. And, if you manage to hit a couple in a row, happy days. And like I say, usually you will come good a few times. And if you can just get that value, always good. Plenty of tools out there to take a look at prices. Obviously, look at the concessions on offer as well. Some people may offer money back if you miss by one, things like that. It does help. But yeah, just enjoy it. And, I think we've all missed them. But we'll move on. Because, guys, we've got the biggest game of the weekend, and England can win a Euros. This is sensational stuff. I'm going to confess, I won't be tipping on this. I've watched about 3 England games, and that's it. So I don't feel qualified to get too involved. But, Jake, I know you've been really getting stuck into the Women's Euro, so we'll get your take on it first of all, and then we'll go to Farley. But, Jake, first of all, do you think, very quickly in a nutshell, isn't it amazing how far women's football has come? That, okay, England are doing well, so we're going to talk about it. But I've got mates that 5 years ago would have laughed at the idea of watching England. They're going to the pub to watch this.
It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. Like, admittedly, I'm left with egg on my face a little bit too, because I didn't think I'd be getting so stuck into it. I think it's just been incredible what's happened over the last month. The whole country that seems to be getting behind the girls, which is good. I think that we saw on the BBC there's been 9 or 10 million viewers in the last 2 games that England have played, which is madness. It's absolutely unreal. And I just do feel like England have a great chance of winning, but it's a bit similar to the men's, the Germans. You never know what's going to happen, do you? Never know at all. Like, it could be anything. They've won the Euros 8 times, so it could be anything. I've actually gone for, I think both teams are going to score, and I've gone for Beth Mead and Alexandra Pop to score at 10 to 1. Now, those 2 players sit at the top of the top goal scorers in the competition. Alex Pop, she's scored in every single game so far at the tournament. She scored a brace against France. And Beth Mead, there's not really much else we can say about Beth Mead, because Farley spoke very highly of her last week when we spoke about the Sports Personality of the Year award. So I do think that it's a great shout, yeah. I think both players definitely have a good opportunity to score this week in the final. What about you, Farley? What are you saying?
Yeah, so for me, Beth Mead at 11 to 4 to score, I think has to be the bet. Obviously, joint top goal scorer. Yeah, I'm not going to take a victory lap on the Sports Personality thing just yet. I think she is favourite now, but I would say a goal here on Sunday, and I think that is unless we see something special from the men in Qatar, I think that is probably wrapped up. But we'll see. I think it's going to be an exciting game. I think, look, I'll be honest, I've not watched a huge amount of the tournament. I've kind of watched the key games for England, but I think one thing more so than the product itself that I've actually really enjoyed watching the games is just seeing all the little kids and like the girls and stuff, like sort of really kind of celebrating that little dancing girl the other day. It's sort of, you know, old man now sort of brings a little
warms
smile
the
to your
heart
heart.
of even the biggest cynics like you, Farley.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I think there's other football I prefer. I prefer the EFL, I prefer the Premier League, but as long as people are really enjoying it, I think that's fantastic. So looking forward to it. And I'll be there as well, which is extra good.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Well done.
Absolutely jumping on the bandwagon.
Yeah, well and truly,
shameless.
I mean, it's fantastic. And I think to wrap up the segment, win, lose or draw this game, it's been a huge strive for women's football and getting the respect 100%. It deserves. And I think a few of us that perhaps in the past have knocked it, you know, we all need to take a look at it and give it the respect. I think it's long overdue. It needed. Right, we've got a couple of other sections to whiz through. Let's start with some sport coming up this weekend. I quite like watching it. I'm not the best at tipping on it, but Jake, the F1, we go to Hungary, I believe. It's the final race before the summer break.
Yeah, so the Hungarian Grand Prix this weekend, it's more than likely going to be dominated by Ferrari. They have the fastest car when it comes to going around the curves, and it's a very curvy track. That's how it's been described. It's going to be an interesting race because Red Bull over the last few weeks haven't exactly been the best, but Ferrari have just struggled when it comes to reliability on the cars, and Charles Leclerc has really struggled to actually just race well, to be honest. He made a mistake last week where the team were trying to own up to throttle issues. Charles Leclerc himself was saying that it was him who made a massive mistake. But again, Max Verstappen has already come out and said he thinks that it's just going to be a write-off for Red Bull this weekend. Ferrari's downforce in the car is just perfect for the track. What I have gone for is Charles Leclerc to win the race and be the fastest qualifier this weekend, because he does tend to get pole quite a lot. Like, he's done it 7 times this season, and unfortunately he's only then gone and won the race a couple of times. But I feel that he has got a good chance of winning the race and getting pole, and that's 15-8. So there's a little bit of value there in a sport that you do tend to struggle to get value in. I know, like, a lot of people tend to have like little pound bets here and there on like first car to retire and stuff like that, because you never know what happens on the first lap. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So you never know what happens on the first lap. You sometimes get massive prices on like the Mercedes cars crashing out and stuff like that. But yeah, it's good to have a bit of value in the F1. Away from Formula One and back over to the UK, we've got some horse racing this weekend. We've had glorious Goodwood all week, Boz. I know you're the expert at horse racing. What have we got coming up this week?
I haven't felt like an expert this week, Jake. If you've been a favourite backer at Goodwood, traditionally a really good place to back favourites, you've done very well. If you've been a favourite backer at Galway, you've done appallingly. Big week of racing, lots going on with the Galway Plate, Galway Hurdle, and Goodwood itself. Some great racing with Stradivarius, loads of good coverage on ITV. Stewards Cup on Saturday is a big sprint race. So I think it's something like 28 horses charging down the track. It's a really big spectacle. And it's very hard to find the winner of it. In recent years, trends have kind of gone out the window just a little bit on this race. One of the unique things is there's a live draw for it, which was conducted earlier today when I was at Goodwood. And it's always quite amusing because some people think you want to be drawn low, some think you want to be drawn high. But lads, can you ever guess at which number was the last drawn out the hat today?
Number 1.
No. Farley, you ever guess?
Number 7.
13, of course. I mean,
Oh, should
you
have
know,
guessed that.
it's just bizarre. And I'll give you 13 was left, and it just makes it just, yeah. My favourite was the French horse that's coming over for the race. He was allowed to pick his own number by his stable staff by nibbling a piece of apple with a number written on it. They basically went through an order of that and had a provided order. So some people swear by getting a good draw, others couldn't care less. The horse that I'm going to talk about has sort of been dropping down the handicap. Not been running particularly well this season, which might seem strange as a selection. It's Taib of Archie Watson. Archie's ticking over at about a 20% strike rate for the last 2 weeks, so the yard are going nicely. He gets the services of Holly Doyle, a female jockey that plenty of casual viewers to racing may have heard of. She finished third in Sports Personality of the Year. She had a big race winner in Nashua today. She's a brilliant jockey, brilliant horsewoman, and certainly can deliver some fantastic efforts. The horse itself this season finished fifth in April on reappearance before running third at Windsor, third at Haydock, and then running at Royal Ascot and running reasonably well in a big field in a race that I think was stronger than this. As a result of those recent runs, the mark has tumbled now. So it's down to a mark of 98. And for context, when you go back through the form book, this horse has won off marks of 96, marks of 103, marks of 104. In good races as well, that's fair to be said. He's got a few miles on the clock, but he wouldn't be the most exposed in here. He's a 7-year-old. I think he can go really well over the 6. 33 to 1 just looks a big price. This will be the race that you'll get 6, 7 places at most bookmakers for. So you can have a couple of other stabs at it. The market leader currently, I believe, is probably going to be Mr. Wagyu for John Quinn, who had a winner at Goodwood earlier in the week. Around 7 to 1. I'm not going to be too interested in that. I think it's a bit short for me, but I couldn't put you off if you like it. I'll give a mention to Summer Hand as well for David O'Meara, who's a bit of a standing dish in this race. But yeah, from one type of horsepower to another, I definitely think Goodwood, do check out the Stewards Cup. It's a fun race to have a few darts in, and Taib would be my sort of tentative selection there. So from glorious Goodwood, we better head over to the glorious stateside and find out Sam Farley wants to shed some light on a US sports bet, possibly ahead of, I'm guessing, something to do with the NFL.
Yeah. So firstly, Boz, who is writing these little segues you've got going on? That horsepower one. You've thought about that before, haven't you?
I have to write and produce this show as we talk, and I need to turn my light on. It's really dark here, so I'm triple threating today. So yeah, lots going on, and you're going to enlighten us on what you want to talk about for US sport, because I didn't get time to have a proper analysis.
Yeah, so the US sport, and in particular the NFL, are kind of my real kind of passions, and I'm probably going to do anti-posts for one US sport or another, pretty much all the way through till they actually begin to start again. And there's one here that is just, it's leaping off the page. So this week it was confirmed, although it's pretty much kind of expected anyway, that Jimmy Garoppolo was to give way as the San Francisco 49ers starting quarterback and would be replaced by Trey Lance, who they drafted high in the draft last year. Now, the 49ers are a really well-run team. They were very good last year. Obviously, you remember reaching the Super Bowl. But Trey Lance is 50 to 1 to be MVP this year. Now, that is crazy for a guy who didn't really play much last year, I know. But I think rookies, and he is effectively, I'd say, almost a rookie in this sense, they thrive when they're put into successful teams and teams that kind of have good coaching, which this team absolutely does. And for me, he is a huge upgrade on Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think was... he's just an average NFL quarterback. So you're looking at a guy here who has a higher evasion rate. He's a far better runner, a quicker runner with the ball, so he can kind of escape the pocket and get downfield. You have longer air yards per attempt, 10.5 to 7.4 of Jimmy Garoppolo last season. He takes more 20-plus yard deep attempts, which Jimmy Garoppolo is not very good with the long passing at all. And his completion percentage is on those passes was 45.5% as opposed to Jimmy Garoppolo's 36.4%. So he's a lot more accurate. He goes downfield more. He is just an upgrade in every single way that I can see. And I think he's not the guy I'm picking to be MVP. That's somebody else. And to be honest with you, you can either ask me on Twitter if you're nice, I'll tell you, or I'll save it for when we talk about the NFL nearer the season in more detail. But Trey Lance, as a sneaky little bit of value, 50-1, I'd get that sooner rather than later, because as these reports from training camp come in about how well he's doing, you will see that price get nibbled at, and it'll probably go down to maybe 40-1 or something like that. So get the 50s while you can, I say.
Especially when I have my tenner on, Farley.
Exactly. Now, one thing we absolutely love here at the At Odds podcast is just novelty bets. And one man is our king, and that is Jake Ashton. He has a fantastic one here around the Europe's favourite singing contest. And I've got to be honest, I've been kind of getting involved in the betting as well on this week. So I'm thrilled to hear what you've got to say.
Right, so I think I best start this off by talking about last week's Fishermania bet, right? Because it was a bit of a stinker, I'm not going to lie. He had an absolute... Yeah, they just had a bad time, Andy Bennett, last week. I know I tipped him up at like 7-2 to win it, but he just didn't fancy it at all, I don't think. But this week, again, Eurovision, that's what we're looking into a bit more. So there's two different markets for Eurovision hosts. So there's the Eurovision host city, and Glasgow are heavy favourites for that. But it's more the actual presenters that I want to look at a bit more. So you've got Scott Mills at 5-1. Now, Scott Mills was part of the presenting team for Eurovision this year. So he presented like the semi-finals over there. And he's obviously a very popular figure at the BBC. He's been on Radio 1 for years. I know he's leaving to go to Radio 2. But he's 5-1 to be a presenter in the final. But there are like other little bets and just little odds that I look of, like Alex Scott 16-1. I feel like the BBC have put Alex Scott on like everywhere at the minute. Football Focus. She's doing presenting here and there. But I just think Scott Mills 5-1 to co-host Eurovision. It's a great bet. It is a great bet.
He's been involved, hasn't he, Jake, for a number of years, and I think that will help. Is Graham Norton the favourite? I'd guess.
Graham Norton's like 1-4. He's heavy favourite.
But surely you want him on the broadcast, don't you? If you're the BBC.
Yeah, that's a really fair point.
are going to be the host broadcaster also.
Yeah, I wouldn't be taking them. I think that 5-1 on Scott Mills is an interesting bet.
Any prices there for Jermaine Genius? He is getting where Walter can't right now.
He does do everything.
Like Jermaine Genius, I think he actually is in the betting market, like 33-1 around that figure. Like, there's so many just random people in the market, and you just think like, where are they pulling all these names from? It's crazy.
Jake, you can actually get Scott Mills at 7-1. Just looking at BetVict, who I work for, there's loads of great names out there, though, isn't there? Just having a flick through. I mean, you could make a case. Sam Ryder at 30-1. Obviously, he's very charismatic. He's a previous winner. He's going to be involved in some capacity.
I think that's a shout, because like he will be involved in that broadcast on some level. Like that's nailed on. So you're just betting then on what his actual role will be, right?
And isn't it usually they have about 3 kind of presenters? The only thing I would say is obviously everything's a bit thrown up in the air with this Eurovision and with the host city side of it. And at the risk of sounding a little bit tactless, I don't mean to. Obviously, they are going to try and put a Ukrainian spin on it because it can't be hosted in the Ukraine. So I wondered, would we potentially, and I couldn't think of anyone particularly in the UK market that listed there, but anyone that was potentially got Ukrainian heritage, something like that might well be part of the team. Yeah. I think you could see some real interesting touches. I know for host city that a lot of people have been getting involved in. I believe people have been looking at, cities that are twinned potentially. I think Sheffield's twinned potentially with a Ukrainian city. So that's an interesting angle just to consider. I certainly will be backing Ukraine to win it again when the market comes out, because I just think there's going to be an element again of screw you, Russia. We're going to get it to Ukraine next time, no matter what. And if they have to win back-to-back Eurovisions, we'll vote for them no matter what.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see what kind of entrance we get. But UK's got great heritage with the Eurovision. I personally would have a little nibble if I had to on a host city. Brighton were quite a big price. Certainly the right
small
kind
arena.
Of. Sorry?
Small arena.
Yeah, we'd have to hopefully take over the Amex there, maybe.
I don't know what the odds are like now, but Manchester was 7-1 earlier in the week, which like
very big.
I basically went through and kind of compared every arena and where they've been previously and all that stuff. And that it's a massive arena. Like that just makes the most sense for me. obviously has a really good nightlife and kind of culture up there as well that I think would really kind of vie into that as well. But look, guys, we opened the floor up this week to Twitter, to our followers and listeners, just to ask some questions. And you know, I am absolutely thrilled. We actually had questions. We had 2 questions come in. So it's good to know we're not just kind of out here in our rooms just shouting into the abyss. And there's one that I thought was a brilliant question from Tom Rye on Twitter, who asked, does anybody have, or any, this is absolutely insane, does anybody have any crazy requester bets that are 200 to 1 or above? So I think, first of all, let's pass this to a man who saw that question and deliberately thought, I'm not going to answer that. I'm going to take one that's half the price. So, Sam, why don't you tell us about
guilty.
it?
Yeah, Tom, thanks for your question. Listen, I did look, and I'll be honest, these days the value is very squeezed out of these. 5 years ago, you'd get a much better price about stuff, but they know people are too shrewd. The one I liked, it probably goes back if you watched last week's anti-post preview. I apparently turned into a Spurs fan for this season, God knows why. But they're 100 to 1 to score in every Premier League game. Now, 100 to 1 is probably as short as I'd want to take it. But looking through their record last year, there were a couple of blanks. But if I genuinely believe they're going to be title contenders, they're going to have to score in nearly every single game. If we can get to April and they've scored in every single game, you are going to be sat in quite a nice position to potentially look at maybe thinking about starting to hedge it off a little bit by watching each game and backing Spurs not to score in a game. At 100 to 1. So that was my dart. I know it's not 200 to 1, Tom. Big apology there. But that was I wanted to give you some value that I thought was fair rather than just pick something that, you know, is too insane. A man that will pick you an insane bet, though, is Jake Ashton, who will probably have something at around 6 million to 1 for you.
Well, Tom asked for crazy, and I thought, let's actually get a bit crazy. So mine's just like a massive get a price that's got about 20 different outcomes on it. So it's 300 to 1, massive odds. Again, as always, we'll always say on these bets, small stakes, don't go crazy.
Bit of fun.
It's just literally not worth like putting 50 quid on bets like this. Like, as always, just make sure you gamble aware and just be responsible when you're betting on these markets. So I've got England to win the World Cup. We've got to be patriotic. This is our year. This is our year.
Facts.
And then we've got Norwich to win the championship. I discussed that earlier. I'm backing Norwich.
Yeah. You're backing your convictions. I like it.
City to win the Prem.
Oh,
as
here
we
we go.
discussed on last week's.
Putting 4 to 7 shots in, Jake. Yeah.
Fulham to be relegated.
Yeah.
I think Mitrovic is going to struggle this year. He's going to score like 10 goals, if that. Haaland Golden Boot. I know I tipped Jesus last week, but Haaland to get the Golden Boot is just something that I think
if City win the league, he's going to go pretty close, let's be honest.
Yeah. And then last one's Edison Golden Glove. So we've seen that on, I think he's won the Golden Glove like 3 or 4 times since he's been here. So he's just a keeper who he only has to make 1 save game. There's games where he just doesn't even get tested at all because we have those dominant games. 300 to 1. That's a price. That is a price. Tom, I tried.
I don't hate that, you know, for the price. I'm not sure I'd like. It's not something I'd totally go for myself, but I think that should be like maybe 150 to 1, something like that. Look, guys, I'm going to tell you about mine. It's 750 to 1. So this is you do not put more than £2 on this. All right, you put on £2, you clear £1.5. That is it. No more. Don't even think about it. So my thing with the request bets is I think football, they're so stinky. It's really hard. Do I back myself to be able to outfox their NFL traders? Potentially I do. I think there's a world in which I can. So I went to look at the NFL, and this is a bit embarrassing, guys. So I was looking down, I opened the little bit where you can go into like, was it 33 to 1 or above, or 80 to 1 or whatever it is. Open it up, scrolling down. Don't like this, don't like this, don't like this. Get to this one, I think, bloody hell, I love this. That is almost exactly who I think will win these awards. And then I realised I actually requested it 2 months ago. So it is my exact bet. So
who's this genius that shares my thinking? Oh, it's myself, says Sam.
I was thinking like this is so on it, but look, I'm going to guide you through this. Actually, I told you I wasn't going to talk about my NFL MVP, but I've got to mention him here. Lamar Jackson, I think he's around 25 to 1 with most firms to be NFL MVP. He's won it once before. He was injured last year at times, had an injured team around him. He is so good, and because of his dual threat ability, that really kind of opens him up to winning an award like this. So I've got Lamar Jackson to be MVP. Aiden Hutchinson, now of the Detroit Lions, to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's favourite, but it's a really good shout because he's a kind of real culture guy, and he's in a team that are pretty bad defensively. And I think any kind of good addition put in there will almost just look brilliant by comparison. So I think that's a really good pick. And the other one is probably the one I'm least confident of them all, even though odds-wise he's not that bad. That is Kenny Pickett, who is quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers now, him to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. He will get that starting job at some point this season. You just got to hope it's early. But ultimately, out of the last 3 Offensive Rookies of the Year, 2 have been quarterbacks. It is an award that I think it's also 3 in the last 6. It is an award that trends towards quarterbacks. So he is the best quarterback there, I would say. Aiden Hutchinson, I think, is a lock, to be honest with you. And Lamar Jackson, I think, is a very shrewd price. So 750 to 1. I've got a couple of quid in it myself. I think that is value. Should be down around like 200 to 1, something like that.
Well, one of us failed the assignment before the bet had even been struck. So apologies, Tom. But I wasn't going to do anything for the sake of it. Fair play, you two, because there's a bit of homework in there.
Can I say one thing really quick, Sam? One thing really quick. If you're listening to this, you got this far, please, can you have a little look out there into these requested bets and tell us what you think is the best request to bet at these insane prices? Because I don't know about you guys, I love to hear them. I love to hear the reasoning, and it'd be privileged to hear that. So send that to us on Twitter.
Yeah, people's differing viewpoints on why something's value is always of interest to me. And let's be honest, I think we're all when we're picking these, we all tend to lean to the more optimistic things for overs. I don't know. I think there could be a market out there for unders if people could be strong enough and strong-willed, but it's not the funnest bet, is it, to watch something hopefully fail? You much rather hope for a bit more entertainment with a bit like my unders bet earlier on the page. Another question we had in was Ash Smith. Ash, we did touch on this a bit last week. First manager to go. There's a more in-depth feature on our Premier League anti-post preview with some big tips, but I'll just reiterate, for me, Brendan Rodgers, 10 to 1. There was rumblings that they might be losing their keeper earlier this week, which astounded me that Kasper Schmeichel could be off somewhere else. I'm still concerned that they don't seem to have signed anyone. It just does feel very quiet from Leicester. Not sure why. Jake, any strong views, anything different from last week on your first manager to go?
I tipped Frank Lampard last week, and I think I'm sticking with that, to be honest, because they are linked with getting signings. The link with Ross Barkley coming back, Idrissa Gueye coming back, but nothing's happening. So before those signings happen, then I might look towards Jesse Marsh a bit more, but I still think Frank Lampard for me. Farley?
Mine last week was Thomas Tuchel at 16 to 1. And I think there's still got to be doubts there. He's getting mugged off by Barcelona at every turn. He's getting frustrated. The defense isn't going to be as good as it was last year. So I think there are question marks, and I think he will definitely leave. But yeah, I actually think your shout of Frank Lampard, Jake, is the money one there. But look, let's quickly talk now about the weekend treble. Last week, we gave out 3 naps. We can talk about how they went in a minute. But what we do here is we kind of give our 3 kind of most confident bets, I guess, We put them together in a nice little treble, 1 each. We serve it to you, and hopefully we'll win you a bit of cash. So look, hands up, my pick last week. I dug deep. I went into the Norwegian football leagues. It did pay off.
We won't be doing that again, will we, Farley?
Odd by tip, odd by result. It ended up being a 2-2 draw over in Christensen versus Odd, which let me down. But how did you guys do in the end?
We'll let Boz get all happy with his pick, but okay. I was really unlucky with mine. I backed Tom Aspinall to win, and he did his ACL after 20 seconds. So I'll take the loss, but it was a bit unlucky. What about you, Boz?
Did anyone give you a justice payout out of interest, Jake, on that? Did you clock anyone? Because I did watch. I don't tune in for a lot of UFC, but I was watching it, eagerly anticipated it, and I felt really bad for the lad involved, obviously. But it was real. Does that happen often in UFC? Was I just unlucky?
He was just unlucky, to be honest. Yeah, it does happen. It definitely happens, but it's just one of them things where first kick that he threw landed dodgy on it, and I'm not sure if anyone did do a justice payout because at the end of the day, it's officially counted as a loss. So
my bookie that I was using didn't do a justice payout, and to be honest, I actually thought they would. I was kind of expecting it due to the high-profile kind of nature of it all, so it's a bit disappointing.
I thought there might maybe it's because it's UFC and not boxing. I don't know, but I thought there could be an angle there, but no. Right. So my racing nap last week effectively did what I did in front of these two and absolutely scooted clear into the distance. All right, it was even money, but the boys in blue gave us another winner, and I'll kick off this week's proceedings. We're going to stick with racing for mine. We're going to Goodwood on Saturday for the opening race. Which is a maiden, which means it's for horses that haven't won a race yet. So a lot of them are very lightly raced, not had that much experience, or perhaps not even run at all. There's a horse at the top of the market here at 6-4 that I really like. Pretty sure it will go off closer to even money come the day. It's for Richard Hannon, who's a really good trainer, loads of horses, very experienced. Typically, his dad, who he's taken over from, used to do very well at Goodwood. Richard has had a double tonight at Salisbury at time of recording. He's had horses hitting the crossbar at Goodwood this week with a couple of seconds. Everything seems to be running reasonably well. He actually had a winner as well earlier on in the week, and that was with Pat Dobbs, who takes the ride here. Pat rides plenty of horses for them. The owner and breeder is Miss Julie Wood, who I've been fortunate to meet a few times. She puts a lot of money into the game. This horse is very well bred. So its father was a very famous racehorse called Debarwi. She's had a few by him, and certainly I think this is a horse to note. Ran once at Newbury. I was there that day and was very what we call green in horse racing. So just needs the experience possibly. Stayed on very nicely. And the rider that day certainly didn't give the horse too difficult time once the race was over effectively. So I think you can upgrade that performance. 6-4. I'll be getting stuck in with a name like Classic. He could have classic aspirations next year in something like the Derby, looking at his page.
Nice.
Lovely. Jake, what do you got for us?
I've gone for Alexandra Pop to score in the final. I know I preached about being patriotic before, but she's just been brilliant for Germany this tournament. Every time I've watched Germany, she's scored in every single game. She's tied with Beth Mead at the top of the leaderboard for top scorer. 5-2 to score. I think it's a massive price. And again, I think she will score against England in what's going to be a good game Sunday. Farley, what have you gone for?
Look, I'm going to level with you guys. Last week, I took the kind of longer odds approach to beef out our treble. You guys have done that this week, so I'm going to go for something that is short. We're diving back into League Two again. We kind of touched on it earlier as part of my EFL Acca. Stockport to beat Barrow in League Two. Barrow narrowly avoided the drop last year. They were 22nd out of 24 teams. And if that league had more relegations like it should, they would be back in the conference. Meanwhile, Stockport obviously won the conference, got themselves promoted, scored 87 goals in the process, and only conceded 38, so less than 1 goal a game. And I think they are going to absolutely batter Barrow. They're at home, first game of the season in the Football League. I think 3-5, I think that is printing money. Absolutely love it. So that puts our odds on the treble at the best price bookie, which I'm not going to mention because we like to kind of keep it all fair here, but 11.49 to 1. So you're getting some good value there, I think, on this treble. But yeah, I think that probably just about wraps it up. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm on a yellow card, I think, for next week's pod with my mention. Right, look above my head. Apart from that weird slash of light, you can also see all our socials. Please give us a follow. We'd really appreciate it. And we want engagement from you guys. If you're listening on a podcast, drop us a tweet and you can give us an opinion, whatever it is. If there's any topics you want us to talk about, anything you want to know about, anything you want. You know, does Jake have a girlfriend? Will Farley ever shave that beard off? Will this light ever not be shining in my face? Anything you want. We'd rather you kept it to sports betting, though. And as ever, gamble responsibly. We'll be back with Premier League pits. Obviously, the Premier League action starts on Friday night next week, so don't forget that. Really exciting. Lots to get stuck into. And a big thank you for watching, listening. Please do like and share the video.
Ta-ra.